I felt like doing something that wasn't pastels today. So I have literally the cheapest gouache you can get. This pack of 12 milliliter tubes was about $8. For contrast, the next cheapest gouache that I could find was the Winsor & Newton, not the designer grade, but the artist grade. And those were $10.99 a tube. So, a little bit of a price gap there. You know, $8 versus $130. It's just a little bit. So we're gonna try this out. We're gonna paint some swatches, since I haven't actually opened this yet. And I'm gonna see if I can paint something for you. So let's go. Okay, getting right into it with the swatches today. I'm going in the order the tubes came in the pack, so we're starting with the white. This is actually my first time touching any gouache, so I'm a bit curious as to what that's like. The most paint experience I have with its oils, and I've been told that the only thing that they have in common is that they're both applied with brushes. Oil's slow drying, and gouache dries like it's in the goby. Oil blends whether you want it to or not, while gouache takes a lot of speed and effort to blend well, etc, etc, etc. It's also supposed to be very opaque, which is a lot of hit and miss with this set. You can see that the warmer colors are like watercolors mixed with Chinese white, which I suspect forms the base of these paints. Yellow in particular is incredibly transparent. That ain't good, but on the other hand, it was $8. I'm having a hard time being too rough on these paints with that in mind. And now, just to keep these swatches straight, I'm gonna write down the color names. It's not like it's a big set, but I like to keep everything nice and tidy. It's a shame they didn't package a burnt umber with this set. It's pretty close to some of the watercolor sets I own, but just a bit different. I like some more utility colors like an ultramarine instead of an aqua, and maybe a burnt umber rather than a viridian. Black's not out of place per se, but I'm more likely to use a deep purple or blue for shading. Also, I like how the purple is just purple. No pigment name, no nothing. Today's painting starts as a drawing, which isn't usually how I start my paintings. It feels appropriate this time though, and it's a good test to see how opaque the colors truly are. Today's picture is a little baby. As with all my people, it starts with a circle and a chin. I mark out the general proportions of the face with these little ticks, and then immediately erase some construction lines. The eyes on a baby sit a lot lower on the face than on an adult, with the eye line starting somewhere around the halfway point rather than the 2/3 point. Actually, a lot of things on a baby are all kinds of messed up. The limbs are too short, the head is too big, the torso is just a little mushy lump. I tell you, if we weren't literally programmed to find babies adorable, the human race would have died out millennia ago. Nobody's gonna find this baby adorable, though. I'm not sure why I gave them a cataract. I kinda zone out when I'm drawing. It's not even necessarily a flow state, but it helps to forget that I have a body when I need to coordinate with my art. Also, it's a full body shot. I rarely do these, so having one be my very first foray into a new art supply may not have been a great thing to do, but I can't change that now. In fact, maybe it's not healthy to judge the first thing you do with the same critical eye that, like, the 1,000th thing gets, hey? It's all about that practice. I'm trying to be easier on myself, and I'm keeping that in mind. My second piece with gouache, the script comes later in the week as compared to the actual painting, is a load better, even if it's more in my wheelhouse and just a safer picture in general for me. Either way this drawing is done, on to the actual painting. I always like to start with the fun part, this particular time being the head. I'm experimenting with how exactly you use gouache, so I'm going to put a whole layer down and see where that gets me. It's not my best work, to be honest. Even at this stage, I'm fighting with the medium. It's kind of fun. It's like a puzzle that I have to put together. And even if it's not the best work I've put out, it's still an opportunity for growth. This particular face has a lengthy ugly phase. I do not have the capacity to stress how much I fixed those lips. I didn't even think about what I was using to block in sections. And unfortunately, I lack the experience to get out of it. I don't spend a lot of time with paints, which is something I hope to change with these gouache paints. The fact that you can revitalize them, rather than waste paint by being lazy and not using them for a few days, really appeals to my lazier side. But there's some things to be said about an ugly baby for sure. I'm sure you've seen ugly babies before, but this one, huh. Boy oh boy, this sure doesn't feel like it should be a human. The top lip does get fixed. Maybe not as quickly as the bottom lip, but we'll see. Just a quick foray into the neck region before going back to the face. This baby has a chubby neck, which I guess is an aspect all babies have. I actually really like this ear, but I end up working over it a few times, unfortunately. It's funny. Watching back, you see all the good things that should have stayed more than the bad stuff that you know gets fixed anyway. Oh, thank God that lip got fixed. Sort of. I'd rather it have a milk stash than fish lips. The things you do when you're only thinking about hues and values. Moving down, we start blocking in the shoulders. This white is really chalky, but I can't put all the blame on the supplies. I definitely need more practice mixing colors. You can especially see it in my pale skin drawings. Those are almost always a pink rather than a proper skin tone. These shoulders look good though, like a frosted little cinnamon bun. I just have to keep telling myself that it's a blocking in rather than a full-fledged finishing. That is one advantage to oils. If you mess up, you can either blot it with a wet Q-tip and lift it, or wait for it to dry to paint over it. Just trying to soften the edges a bit here. It's really too stark of a difference to say the way that it is, even if it is a block in. I'm not using a dark enough color yet. The arm is entirely too chalky and transparent at the moment, but again, say it with me. Blocking. I like to work counterclockwise on a piece. Being right-handed lets me see what I'm doing better. Maybe with gouache it would be a good idea to jump around a bit more though. While you're waiting for parts to dry, I mean. I don't do these little feet justice. They're so chunky and adorable! On the reference photo anyway. Getting some darker colors finally. This tummy is mostly in shadow with a little bit of light falling on the top half of it. I'm using the gouache very thickly to see how opaque it is. In hindsight, I could have used it transparently to block it in before going ham on the baby, but it's in the past. And experience is the greatest, and quite often my only, teacher. The center of the belly is almost straight burnt sienna with a smear of white on the very middle, but the brown seems a lot more transparent on this pass than it did on the swatches. It might have to do with revitalizing the paints with water between swatch and baby. That's definitely a thing you have to keep in mind with the gouache, I'm finding. They dry up faster than anything I've used before. This is still an advantage when you use them like I'm using on this arm. Straight color and then shading on top. I kind of smear the colors together with a wet brush to make them blend into each other. I'm really grateful for this ugly stage, to be honest. It keeps an artist honest. Showing off ugly pictures keeps artists honest too. Everyone makes them. Someone with 20 years of experience could have a bad day and make something a third grader could be ashamed of, you know? It's hard to intellectualize that sometimes, and on darker days you feel like you're the worst artist in the world, but that's the exciting thing about art. If you just keep making art, you can't ever be the worst artist, because the worst artist would be someone who doesn't even think about making art. Humans are born to create. We've been doing it since before we've been human. The background's an afterthought. Huh. I seem to say that a lot, eh? Maybe one day I'll start doing more complicated backgrounds. At the moment, I'm trying to correct mistakes that I've made in the course of getting here, like clipping the head and arm with the background. I guess I should talk a bit about this paper too. It's artist loft paper in the form of a wire-bound sketchbook. It's about 5.5 by 8 inches. Not that I've measured it or anything, but that's a pretty common size for this kind of book. It's about 140-pound wood pulp paper. It's not cotton or anything, so it's not the highest quality watercolor paper, but it doesn't warp too much, and it doesn't pill like other paper that I have. You create. It It's sad to say I don't fix this face that well yet. I'm spinning my wheels a bit here and I'm feeling a bit frustrated, to be honest. This is feeling like a bit of a wasted first impression, but my hand is a bit forced, but I can't really give a first impression without a first to be impressed upon now, can I? Having a background sometimes helps to get the picture in a context other than a blank sheet around it though, and I'm hoping inspiration strikes. Newsflash, it doesn't. That being said, I do like some things about it at this point. Like the forehead and the right ear especially. The chin feels especially double chin too, which is something that is incredibly endearing about baby faces. The right forearm is decent too. Maybe some more contrast can help. I'm gonna start darkening the silhouette to up that whole contrast thingy. Actually, it's kind of funny how the color changes when it dries. I've heard that it's a thing with gouache, but this is my first time seeing it so clearly. Light tones dry darker, and dark tones dry lighter. How funky is that? This also means that color matching is going to be a lot harder for gouache than it is for oils, and that painting is more advantageous to be done in one sitting. Messing with the seating a bit too. Not that it's particularly helpful, but it kind of looks like a little crater with snow leaking out of it now. Anyway, this isn't going anywhere very quickly, so I think it's time for a break. Alright, I've been working on this piece for about 2 hours now. It's not going anywhere. I've got other stuff I've got to do today, so I'm going to put it down for now. I'm going to come back to it tomorrow bright and early, and I'm going to see if I can make anything out of it. Oof! This is the first time coming back to a piece like this. I gotta tell you, it felt really defeating to have to put it down, but I was spinning my wheels on it. I have some better ideas coming back to it now, which shows that sometimes the best thing you can do is a big fat nothing. It's a bit different from the day before because honestly I forgot to hit record before I started on it. But y'all didn't miss much, to be honest. I blotted out the top of the head so I could see where it was supposed to be a bit better. Here I am highlighting, lowlighting, outlining. Outlining stuff in a darker brown so that they actually have definition. The feet were basically just blobs. Not that baby feet have much definition, but come on. Now, you can see the little piggies going to market. I'm using a ridiculously small brush here. It's a 5-over brush. It's basically for painting models. I like to work small in general though, at least when I'm not doing pastels or anything like that. Heck, even my oil paintings mostly fit on a 5x7 canvas, and I don't think I have oil brushes that are nearly that small enough. You can't really use brushes in different mediums either. Once bristle touches mineral spirits or acrylic paints, the effectiveness of, let's say, watercolor is diminished. Which is just as well, because that means I get to go shopping for twice as many toys. Gonna try to undo a bit of the white paint from the day before too. It's just not sitting well with me. Unfortunately, the aqua color is very transparent in this instance. I'm actually using the same paint more or less as it was the day before, which is kind of exhilarating to be able to just revitalize paint like that. It's like acrylic without any of the drawbacks. Last stretch. Get all that yellow out of my face. I'm friends with green now. It's a much nicer contrast and frankly, a nicer color in general when compared to the yellow ochre. Leaving a nice glow around the baby though. Want to make her look like she has superpowers. What kind of power would a baby have anyway? That a baby wouldn't normally have, like sonic powers or like charm abilities. Maybe this baby has super hearing or can comprehend all languages equally. I know these eyes aren't going to be shooting lasers or anything anytime soon. They are looking better though, now that they've had a bit of care given to them. Just don't expect the moon from this painting, alright? I'm doing my best to take care of this child, but lordy, she is not making it easy. I'm getting close to done though. Just a few dabs and swipes of the brush left. It's mostly just maintenance at this point. Darkening the darks and lightening the lights. Like this chest. It's so flat. Well, gouache does that anyway. It's supposed to dry matte, but come on. I messed with the background one last time to see if I could get anything good out of it. For how transparent the yellow was on the swatch, it does show up pretty well on the green. And that's about all, I think. There's a saying that I use to guide my art journey. It's called finished, not perfect. And I would call this finished. All right, there you have it. We got some gouache done today. So what did I think of it? I thought it was pretty good. $8, remember. So you can't expect the world from these things. That being said, they did layer to an opaque amount. Even if it wasn't opaque right off the start, it got there eventually. And some of the colors were very, very opaque, which helped a lot. The yellows and the reds, I would get paint from a new set for those, but the other ones, if you're not worried about light fastness, I would go for them. So this was our little baby. And in the course of making this guy, and doing all the filming and all that, I made a couple others. So we got Mr. Man here. And this was an attempt at a more realistic skin tone. Now, on a sadder note, the last couple of times I went to Michael's, I did not see the gouache for sale. So it might be that they're just redoing their inventory. It might be that they're not selling it anymore. Either way, might be the end of an era of cheap gouache. For now anyway, we've got some cheap gouache that aren't Canadian for our next video. Okay, bye.